CBS anchor Elaine Quijano's performance last night coming under a bit of scrutiny, as it always does. Everyone always likes to evaluate the moderator the day after, and that was her role last evening. Many critics saying that the interruptions we've been talking about erupted because she didn't control the situation enough. Here's some of the back and forth. Take a look at home.
Governor,
I want to tell you about our plan.
Homegrown.
Yeah.
I will give you an opportunity to do that, Governor. I'd like to ask you about Syria, Governor.
We could put cybersecurity first if we
I need to ask you about Social Security. Gentlemen, I want to move on now. Governor, this is Senator Kane's 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, that's right. So now we're even.
Senator, I think I'm still on my time.
Well, I think, isn't this a discussion?
This is our open discussion.
Let's talk about the state of the world.
Gentlemen,
if you can't meet the Nixon standard,
the people at home cannot understand either one of you.
Thank you. Very true. Howard Kurtz joins us now, host of Media Buzz and Fox News media analyst. Howie, welcome. Boy, there were no buzzers, and apparently Tim Kaine thought it was just a discussion and wasn't aware that they had a certain amount of time to answer each question, and then they also had time for rebuttals.
This was the Excedrin debate. It was like the endless cable segment from hell. Look, Elaine Quijano, who's the least experienced of the network moderators, lost control in the opening minutes and never got it back. I mean, both candidates just ran roughshod over her, but especially Tim Kaine, whose whole strategy was to constantly interrupt Mike Pence and attack Donald Trump. Looked like Kaine had about 29 cups of coffee. And as a result, I was in the media center in Farmville, Virginia, and listening on a booming speaker system, and about a third of it was just very hard to follow because of all the crosstalk.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know that Tim Kaine did himself any good with all that interrupting. It seems like if he had sort of chosen his moments and gone for them rather than the rat-a-tat-tat interruption stuff, you know, he probably would have come off a little bit better. But what do you think she should have done or said to them in those moments?
She should have stopped the debate and said, gentlemen, your campaigns agreed to these rules. And, you know, you have 60 seconds and you have a 30-second rebuttal. And, you know, she lamely tried a couple times to say, America can't hear you, and she was right. But it seemed, you know, you said she didn't have a buzzer. She needed a gong. Now, the candidates bear part of the responsibility because neither one would stop talking when they got into those clashes. And I agree with you about Tim Kaine. I mean, he had such a recited laundry list of attacks on Donald Trump, and it didn't matter what the question was. And that was the other place in which Quijano fell short. Even when they weren't talking over each other, they were completely and totally ignoring her questions. A couple of times she pointed that out, but mostly they were doing whatever they wanted up there. And that made for kind of a disastrous debate, Martha.
I mean, she had some, what I thought were some very good questions.
Yes.
And they did not get addressed. And she did, as we showed, jump in and say, look, guys, we're talking about North Korea. And everyone, they sort of laughed, you know. And that was a moment where she could have said, no, I want an answer on North Korea.
There was a question about 9/11. I don't want to talk over you. There was a question about 9/11, and Kaine somehow turned it into an attack on Trump's taxes. That's the kind of night that it was.
Yeah. You know, in terms of the dynamic, I find this fascinating from a television production perspective, because when you sit at a table, it's a whole different ball game. And perhaps one of the reasons that Lester Holt had a bit more control, and there's, you know, things being written today about whether it's, you know, sexist to compare the way these two are being treated in the media based on that. But, you know, he had them up at podiums. He was a greater distance away from them. There's a formality in that sort of sets the tone, does it not?
That's a really good point. And, you know, Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, tweeted that it might have been sexist for the way that Kaine kept interrupting. Obviously, she's representing Trump's point of view. But, you know, usually when you have the two contenders sitting near each other, it makes for kind of a softer tone, a more civil debate. And these are two guys who, in their usual lives, are very low-key, polished politicians. Of course, Kaine, you know, was taking on the role of attack dog, and Mike Pence was letting a lot of the attacks go by, and he seemed, his demeanor, I think, was more widely praised. He probably won the debate on points. But I feel for Elaine Quijano because it's a hard situation to be in. But for whatever reason, sexist or otherwise, candidates who wouldn't cooperate, it really kind of ended up being a train wreck for much of the debate. There were times when we could actually hear the candidates debate, but much of it was just crosstalk.
All right, and a whole different dynamic's going to be in play in St. Louis when you've got the town hall environment and the questions coming from the audience. So they just keep switching up the game in these things, which keeps it really fresh and interesting. And we'll talk to you about that soon as well. Howie, thank you very much. Good to see you this morning.